Hey guys, greetings, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time it is for you as you listen to this message. Today I'm going to talk about what ensued, an argument that ensued in our parliament between Msimanga, a Democratic Alliance leader for Gauteng, against Lindiwe Zulu, a minister of the African National Congress. The title of the story in Business Day in South Africa says, "What Msimanga says about apartheid is embarrassing," says Lindiwe Zulu. Quote, "We haven't really produced a state that is able to generate income so that we get out of the poverty circle. But what we have done is create a welfare state." Here's Lindiwe Zulu. See, Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu lashed out at Democratic Alliance Gauteng leader Msimanga during a debate in the National Council of Provinces, aka NCOP, on the rising cost of living, after Msimanga said living conditions for South Africans were better under apartheid than under the democratic government led by the ANC. Msimanga made the remarks at the NCOP sitting intended to debate the soaring cost of living. Quote, "I say to the ANC, don't you have any shame? You have rendered South Africans poorer and poorer. You have rendered the once upcoming middle class into poverty. Those people who were beginning to restore their dignity after the injustice of apartheid now find themselves worse off than what they were during apartheid days. You better have shame," close quote, said Msimanga. The Social Development Minister did not take kindly to the apartheid comparison. Quote, "The embarrassing thing for me is for Msimanga to stand here and tell us that our people are in a worse position now than they were under apartheid. We are not going to be nice about issues when he speaks about apartheid having been better. Where was apartheid better? Question mark. Can he go and tell people of South Africa, with all the challenges they are facing, that apartheid was better? Question mark. The debate on the cost of living crisis and desperately needed relief measures was sponsored by Msimanga's party, that is the Democratic Alliance. Here's Msimanga. Quote, "I'm very disappointed in Msimanga, but what did I expect? Sometimes as South Africans, we try to unite with each other. We take each and every topic that impacts our people seriously, and sometimes we even remove the politics because we want to see the change that people of South Africa need." Quote, "I want to remind Msimanga that amaqabane kaTambo, that is the comrades of Tambo, are still here." She's referring to herself there. "And we are going to be here for as long as people of South Africa give us the mandate to continue to implement the decisions and policies we have developed on the basis of taking South Africa forward." In his remarks, Msimanga criticized corruption as having crippled South Africa's ability to provide for its citizens. The DA provincial leader said the rising cost of living that had increased drastically over the years has left many South Africans struggling to make ends meet. It is made worse by corruption, and this is a point that all South Africans must live with and come to accept. For years, South Africans have grappled with the relentless surge in fuel and food prices, creating a cost of living crisis that has left many families struggling to make ends meet. More and more South Africans are falling below the poverty line, and there seems to be no way in which this government, if willing, is going to address this issue. We have turned South Africa into a state of dependency. We have done so much damage to the country that more and more of our young people don't see a future. Is this what amaqabane kaTambo promised us 30 years ago? Question mark, close quote. Msimanga criticized the debilitating state of public transport, saying it had caused a further dent in consumers' pockets. People are spending 60% of their salaries on transport to get to work because the government-subsidized buses are not running as they are supposed to. In fact, The corruption there exists to ensure that the public transport system is collapsing, further plunging our people into poverty circle. It's actually poverty cycle. Rail is falling apart in Gauteng. He continued to criticize the government subsidy grant for creating dependency instead of empowering South Africans with their ability to earn a livelihood. We haven't been able to produce a state that takes care of its own people. We haven't really produced a state that is able to generate income so that we get out of poverty cycle. But what we have done is create a welfare state that provides 350 rands because we are heading to elections, even though it is unaffordable. The 350 grants that continues to trap our people in poverty is what is being pushed instead of developing industries that will create jobs, that will remove our people from poverty permanently. The DA provincial leader blamed soaring interest rates for worsening the cost of living crisis. He said residents were becoming poorer and having to do more with less money. The DA has a plan for alleviating the crisis. We have proposed an expansion of the zero-rated food basket. We are saying, why do you keep adding VAT and taxing the poor? The standard of living is not improving for the poor. Instead, it's just getting worse and worse. This once glorious movement of the people is not doing what it is supposed to do, which is creating quality life for majority of people in South Africa. Is Msimanga having a point here? Or is Lindiwe Zulu being correct, or is she being a drama queen? I think she's being a drama queen, because apart from how obvious the issues that are being argued here, I just want to show you something else. Now, this is Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Archbishop Desmond Mpilo Tutu. Listen to what he had to say way before he died.
This government, our government, is worse than the apartheid government.
Did you hear that? So what Soli is saying is not being profound. He's saying something that has been said before, particularly if you take into account the things that Soli is raising. Soli is raising corruption. He's raising interest rates. He's raising fuel hikes. He's raising food prices. Can you see that? All of these issues do not affect the minister. How do I know? Let's go back to the article. Here you go. This paragraph over here, the embarrassing thing for me, let's look at the last sentence there. Can he, that is Soli, go and tell people of South Africa, with all the challenges they are facing, that apartheid was better? Can you see that? Whether that was unwittingly or deliberate, I do not know. The point is this: the minister is saying, Soli, can Soli go and tell the people of South Africa that the challenges they are facing, meaning the minister is not facing those challenges? And that is true. Why? She doesn't pay fuel. She doesn't pay food. We learned this from the Gigaba story that was being told in the Zondo Commission. The minister has a generator that is automated so that if we are load shedding, it kicks in automatically. The minister has bodyguards so she can go wherever without fear of victimization, because she's got sharpshooters as bodyguards. So only an insane person will try to hijack the minister, for an example. She's got an entourage, a blue light brigade that travels with her wherever she goes, whether she's going shopping or wherever she's going. So none of the challenges that are facing us are facing the minister. So whilst we're talking about the fuel levy, that doesn't affect her. Can you see that? When you're talking about prices of fuel and the fuel levy on top of that, that doesn't affect her. You talk about crime, you have to be mad to try to inflict anything on a person who's got armed men who are sharpshooters around them. Okay? You have to be insane. Sane people will not do that. Now, there's a story recently that has happened which is very suspicious of a minister that was hijacked. I did that story. She was that was hijacked with her bodyguards. That story leaves a lot to be desired, but you can listen to it. I have it on this very channel. But let's proceed. The point I'm making here is the quality of life that Soli is making, the arguments that Soli is making are extremely valid. The quality of life in South Africa, because of corruption, because Soli is saying here, it is made worse by corruption. What is he talking about?
We are fed once more with a lot of lies. The Deputy Chief Justice is putting his foot down to say that after R1 billion and a year later, the implications, or rather the recommendations of his state capture report remain unimplemented. And we don't have to look very far. We just have to look at the number of people who are mentioned in their state capture report who have had no consequence come their way. Yet the president was able to say, no, you know, people who are saying we are doing nothing about the state capture report, they are misdirected. I can tell you that that is complete lies. Because in fact, some of the people who are mentioned in that report are in his cabinet, and he doesn't need any CCMA or labor court to deal with those people in his cabinet who have been mentioned in not so flattering ways in the state capture report. But the DCJ, I'm quite glad. We should be blessed to have a DCJ, sorry, not a DCJ, a CJ, who, by the way, when he was chair of that commission, was the Deputy Chief Justice, who is not afraid to contradict the head of state. Because that's really what it is. They can't both be right. One is saying something is being done, another was saying nothing is being done. And if you had the choice between believing Ramaphosa and his dollars in a mattress and the Chief Justice, I'm not sure who you will believe. I know who I will believe at this rate. We're just accustomed to politicians just living a lie, man. You know, it's one thing to lie, but it's another to live a lie and believe your own propaganda. The fact of the matter is, as late as last week, I'm not talking about...
Okay, before JJ continues, he's talking about the DCJ, who's now CJ, that is the Deputy Chief Justice, who's now the Chief Justice. He headed a commission which was called the Zondo Commission, which he spent, they spent $1 billion, it was worth $1 billion to the taxpayer, right? And they came up with 3 volumes of reports, which they gave to the president with the recommendations of all the corruption that took place during the so-called 9 wasted years of Jacob Zuma in the state capture. And obviously the people that are implicated there are members of the cabinet of the president. They are members of the NEC in the ANC. They are high-profile members of the African National Congress. Others are no longer in cabinet, but they are his comrades. Now the president has at his disposal ammunition to deal with those people. Now then JJ asks a question, so who would you believe between the CJ, who is saying nothing is being done, and the president who's saying no, something is being done? It's obvious who we are going to believe. We're going to believe the CJ, because as JJ is saying here, who are you going to believe between a Ramaphosa who had dollars found in a mattress? Now Ramaphosa had $480 million US, which was undisclosed, that was found in his couches in his house, well, not in his house, in his farm, the Pala farm. Now this is problematic in more ways than one, because that demonstrates to us as the public that the president is corrupt, and the African National Congress went to use its majority in parliament to stop a vote that was indicating that the president must account. This is the reason why the president cannot hold his comrades to account, because he himself is corrupt. You see? And that's the point that JJ is making. Okay, now that we've got that, let's proceed, because this is the corruption that Msimanga is talking about. It's happening at high echelons of our government. The ministers have their hands in the cookie jar. That's how they affect and thwart efforts that are geared or engineered towards creating jobs, job opportunities. If you want to create jobs in South Africa, you must grease their hands, these ministers. Don't believe me? Check this out.
Well, many moons ago, as late as last week, we have an allegation here that 3 of the members of the cabinet of the same Ramaphosa have been bribed or demanded a bribe of 500 million rand from a businessman who was or who has signed a contract with the unemployment insurance fund. And of course they have denied. They say, hey, it's not true, and so on. And he even added Mbalula on top of it. Right? He added Mbalula to say, no, it's not only just these three ministers. It's also the Secretary General of the ANC. Of course, Mbalula in his typical way, he ran to court to say, no, this guy must keep quiet.
So here are the three ministers. So what happened is that a CEO of Tuja Holding, the gentleman in the extreme right of your screen, Mtunzi Mdwaba, signed a contract to create 700,000 jobs, and government gave him 5 billion. Obviously, he's going to match that with certain funding that he's going to get from his business friends all over to create these jobs, right? But the 5 billion comes from UIF, and it's a deal that has already been signed because the accounting office of the UIF and the minister have already signed on the dotted line, and the minister for that environment is Thulas Nxesi, the one on the extreme left. So there is a contract that they have signed, but now they don't want to implement that contract because Thulas Nxesi and the minister in the middle, Enoch Godongwana and Blade Nzimande, apparently together with the Secretary General of the African National Congress, which is Fikile Mbalula, apparently they want their hands greased. They want a facilitation fee of 500 million. This is ridiculous. So a project that is geared towards creating 700,000 jobs cannot be implemented because these ministers are holding this individual at ransom. And unfortunately for South Africans, Mtunzi Mdwaba is not a corrupt individual. He cannot be bought. So hence he went public. Now this is a problem. This is a serious problem. How does Lindiwe Zulu fail to understand? Because you see, all what Lindiwe Zulu needed to do to shut her mouth when Msimanga was making the statement, all she needed to do was to recollect the scandals which we saw in the Zondo Commission, because it was published, it was televised live. So you don't even need to have read the 3 volumes of the reports that Zondo produced if you were watching it. It was televised live. So we saw minister after minister, comrade after comrade, and their atrocities. And there's a gentleman named Agriz who's now serving time, who just became a whistleblower and will tell you the house of these individuals, what they look like inside, and give you details, intricate details that only a person who has been in their house could know. But yet the president hasn't sent any of these people in jail. So that's what is a frustration of Msimanga. And do you think that that is something that used to happen? No. This Mdwaba was talking about this last week. He's been interviewed everywhere, from SABC to ENCA to Metro, everywhere. He's even having podcasts interviewing him to document his case. And he has got evidence that is proof, because Mdwaba is a trained lawyer. So Fikile Mbalula made a significant error by going to the police, because Mdwaba did say he doesn't trust the police, so he will not go to the police. Once Fikile Mbalula goes to the police, as he did, then the matter must go before the court. You see, somebody is going to get into trouble. Now, here is the other story.
They steal daily on many fronts. Just last week, the government of KZN was caught with its pants down trying to sniffle 28 million rand from the fiscus. Barno Jadi Sama, Jadi artists, please, we want to celebrate our artists. Only to find that the organizers of the Sama only asked for 8 million rand.
Can you imagine that?
So what was going to happen to the rest of the 20? It was destined to be stolen. The same government of KwaZulu-Natal that is supposed to be bankrupt, whose citizens are living under bridges after the floods, whose children are standing under trees after 110 schools were burned down during the riots. They take 197 million rand tender to resurface a rural road somewhere in the mountains there of a valley of 1,000 hills there. A road that's gonna cost 2 million to resurface. The tender was 197 million rand. The mayor of that municipality called Zandile Gumede is on trial as we speak now for stealing 200 million rand.
Okay, so what are we learning from what JJ is telling us here? For me, it's pretty simple. This is what we are learning. I want to show you what we are learning here. You get the government you deserve. For all practical purposes, we've placed ourselves into this predicament. Now, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. The African National Congress is not doing good by us. They are stealing, they are looting, the comrades are competing about whose hand is going to go deeper into the cookie jar. They are building houses that are not fit for purpose. Check this out. This is a deputy president of Patriotic Alliance, Kenny Gunen. Check this out.
Anathema, you contractors that build these houses, I give you anathema. You the leaders of the ANC, from national to province to region to local, I give you anathema. I curse you in the name of Jesus. You are not human. You are not human. A black government building black people their houses like this. One door, one window. You are fucked.
Now he's using expletives there, so I have to obviously stop the video. But nevertheless, the point is that this is exactly what Msimanga is talking about. Msimanga is saying, while South Africans are experiencing load shedding anything between 10 to 12 hours every day, this affects production, this affects investment in the country, this affects businesses going under, this affects people losing employment, this affects productivity. I may be repeating productivity, but nevertheless it's for emphasis. And then you increase the interest rates. That means everybody who has a bond is going to struggle. Our interest rate has increased from 7% to 11.5%. That is a whopping 4.5%. And none of these are being felt by the minister, right? So load shedding results in multiple problems. Your electric appliances start malfunctioning. Expensive electric appliances in your house, notwithstanding the food that is rotting in your refrigerator. You see? So load shedding has got multiple problems that it causes apart from disinvestment, which to me is a significant one. And then your fuel prices affect the price of food, which has gone up by between 46% to 52%, whilst fuel prices have increased by 64%. So this is what Soli is talking about, that even the middle class can now no longer get away by getting by. They are getting poorer, such that they are probably struggling to pay what is known as a black tax. Nevertheless, it is these reasons that I've just given you that I'm saying to you, Msimanga's point is established in facts. He is not to be anathematized, as the deputy president of the Patriotic Alliance thinks that the ANC comrades should be anathematized. And by the way, I agree with him 100%. They should be anathematized by those who have the authority to anathematize them in the name of Jesus. But if you don't have that authority, you shouldn't anathematize them. But here's the point. We have at our disposal, apart from the anathema, tremendous tools to get rid of the comrades, because they are not only looting or lying to us like Ramaphosa does with a smile, like a smiling assassin, but what they are doing they believe their own lies and they have an entitlement mentality. Just last week, Mbalula delivered a speech of more than an hour where he is saying they've delivered a better life for all. Really? Really? Did you see this article I was reading here for you? Did you see this article? Please engage with the article, because this article is based on fact. There's no way you can tell. That is why he says we have turned South Africa into a state of dependence. We have done so much damage to the country that more and more of our young people don't see a future. Why do you think the crime rate is so high in South Africa? Because youth are frustrated and they have nothing to do with their time. That is why we are the third highest murder rate in the world, ahead of Afghanistan, that has been in the war with America for 20 years. We don't have a declared war in the country, but clearly the country is at war. If between 84 and 120 people die every day in South Africa, not because of natural diseases, then the country is in serious trouble. Why do we need the minister of the police? Why do we need the army if the country is facing such ridiculous deaths of people who left their houses this morning, going to work or going to having a leisure time, and they don't come back home, and these people were not sick? So Msimanga's criticism is based on facts. Lindiwe Zulu's criticism is based on nothing but emotionalism. Hence I'm saying she's being a drama queen. Because we shouldn't be offended when the African National Congress is compared to apartheid regime, when the African National Congress is doing exactly that which the apartheid regime has done to our people. The African National Congress is not even innocent of the atrocities of apartheid. Remember Marikana, where 30 plus people were shot dead as flies by this government of the African National Congress. Nevertheless, the contrast here that Msimanga draws is legitimate. That's my opinion, guys. You tell me what yours is. The grounds upon which he does the contrasting between apartheid government. I remember during apartheid, our murder rate was very low. Our rape rate was very low. And people got decent houses, not a one-door house and a one-window house. And those houses have big yards that if you wanted to extend it, you could extend it. I grew up in such a house, and many black people like me grew up in such a house. And so this is where we are able to contrast. I mean, you look at the schools that we attended, and you look at the schools today, infrastructure that we have. You're talking about hospitals. The biggest hospital in Africa is Baragwanath, and it is built in Soweto by the apartheid government in the township of black people. It's the biggest in Africa. It's the third biggest in the world. Where I grew up in Port Elizabeth, we have a hospital called Dorangidza Hospital, which was always fully supplied with medicine during apartheid. We can't ignore those things just because the comrades have their hands in the cookie jar. And Eskom, which is now failing to supply us electricity, as early as the year 2000, was chosen and got an award of being the best supplier of electricity in the world. So what happened to all those engineers? They were moved because they are white, because of the policies of the African National Congress, which is reverse racism. When you look at the Employment Equity Act, paragraph 15, it talks about affirmative action. That should be anathematized by any South African who think apartheid was wrong. Let this be my parting shot for you, in case you don't understand what I'm saying to you. I am saying affirmative action is one of the reasons why the country is failing. Why? Because affirmative action means people are being appointed based on their skin color, not because of their competence. That is why SAA failed. ISCO, you know what happened to ISCO. Transnet is struggling right now to meet its targets, right? You know what happened to PRASA. What else can I mention? What is working in South Africa? Really? The post office failed. So you can see that there's nothing working under this government. Eskom is failing. Why? Because they have removed competency and focus on the skin color. And here is the reason why, another additional reason over what I've just told you. If you were white, imagine yourself as a black South African for a second that you were white and you were a billionaire. There's more white billionaires in South Africa and the world, by the way, because if you take Africa and contrast it to Europe and America, there's more white billionaires in the world. So if you were a white person and you were a billionaire, would you invest in an economy that hates you and your children? Why? Is there something wrong with you? Would you think that there's something wrong with white Afrikaners who refuse to invest in this economy? When you read the Employment Equity Act. Now, why is this important? This is important because the African National Congress, we never gave the African National Congress a right to come up with such segregatory laws. Because if apartheid was a crime against humanity, what do you think affirmative action is? What do you think black economic empowerment is? You have to be a hypocrite to say, no, it's not segregation. The point also that is very important, Thabo Mbeki, whilst he was a president, lamented white business in South Africa for saying they rather keep cash in their bank accounts than investing in the economy. At that time when he said it, I couldn't understand it until I came across paragraph 15 of Employment Equity Act. I then said, even I would not invest in such a country that hated me for something I couldn't change. I'm black and I'm very proud of it. And if this country hated me for being black, I would never invest in it. If I was a billionaire, think about it. That is what is wrong with the ANC and Malema's politics. They are divisive. They are not what you call constructive. They are not building this country. Okay, we have a country to save from these thieves and criminals. We need to go out in our majority and outvote them out. That's my cue, guys. That's my rant on this one. You tell me what you think about it. Ciao, ciao. Do not forget to like the video. And if you have not yet clicked on the notification bell, please do so that you get all the materials that I produce in this channel. And for those who have already subscribed, thank you very much. Much appreciated. I see the channel is growing, contrary from some prophets of doom from the EFF when I was under 100 people who said I will never grow simply because I criticized their false commander-in-chief. Now, why is he a false commander-in-chief? Well, the only commander-in-chief in any country is the president of the country. You guys have yourself a lovely week.